Let's open it. This is Rob Thompson game playing you today. This is the Monday night edition. Like I got editions Monday, Tuesday, it doesn't matter. And we got Mark and Tom here. How you guys doing?
Very well, thanks, Rob.
Very well, thank you, Rob. Thanks for having us.
Fantastic. So I'm going to go around the horn. Whoever wants to start off. Mark, let's start off with you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the platform, and then we're going to dive into personal questions.
Sure. So Beyond Pulse began in 2014. 2015. Have we lost Rob again? Is he still there?
I'm still here.
No, yeah. Sorry, Rob. Began in 2014, 2015. And it was born out of really myself, two of the other co-founders, Michael Supp and Marc-Andre Meyer, a need for helping and supporting coaches refine and develop their process. So from planning and preparation to delivery to self-reflecting on your own performance as a coach. A lot of what we've seen and what we've measured within youth soccer in particular across the USA, we tend not to look at ourselves and become self-aware about our own delivery and our own planning and how that affects the experience of the player. And we wanted to provide an educational platform using wearable technology as a conduit to help bring an objective insight to manage very, very large clubs with large numbers of coaches and players, all the way down to colleges and high schools, and really support them in that educational process.
Did he miss anything there, Tom, on that one?
I would say the only thing, Rob, is, we speak about the fact that, we're a coach education company that uses technology as a platform through which we can educate. So while people will associate us as a wearable tech product, it's actually, just simply to aid and assist our ability to educate the coaches with which we work. So I think that's the only thing outside of what Willow obviously eloquently mentioned.
So let's start here. So let's have a general overview. If I'm a club, right? If I'm a DOC for a club, how do I use your platform?
I'll give my perspective, and Tom can give feet on the ground perspective. So, for example, if you're a 1,000-player soccer club, you're a director of coaching or a technical director who cannot possibly monitor that volume of staff and the experiences those players and parents are having. You would onboard our product for however many teams you choose. Can be one team, can be in some cases like Tom's club and other clubs who have nearly 800 players in our product. They all have a very simple smart belt, and they connect through an app, and all of the information that's collected from every single practice goes back to our main coach dashboard, where coaches are able to navigate and take a look at and critique themselves in terms of their delivery and how their players are responding to their practices. So things like, and this is a key metric for us, active participation. So how active you are in a 90-minute practice in a moderate to vigorous zone is a really good indicator of player engagement and also coach delivery as well, and coach performance. So we give that type of info back to the coach, and the director of coaching or technical director is able to monitor an entire club without having to spread himself too thin.
Yeah. Is this it's a great value add. It's a great value add if I'm going back, I'm dealing with parents that want information. Mm-hmm. And for a coach to, and I don't know if it's used this way, but if a coach has to justify certain things about those players, why is my kid not playing enough? Why isn't his performance getting better? I think it's brilliant to have backed it up with that data. Is that how some clubs utilize that data and that analytics?
I think it's a sensitive blend, Rob. We always reference the fact that data should be there to support, not to influence decisions necessarily. So I think, as we said at the start, while obviously the recording and analyzing player performance is definitely one element of it, it's also super important that it's recognized as a coach education tool. So as Mark was kind of saying, if you're a technical director, a director of coaching, a club coach, it doesn't really matter what role you play. You're able to look at things more objectively about your own performance, and that's really where the the tool, the belt, the product seems to have had the greatest impact is, you asked how is it used. Well, you've now got coaches who are consciously planning their sessions with more detail to try to maximize engagement, to try to minimize their influence over a session, to try to strategically figure out at what point we're going to ask what questions, offer what solutions to what problems, what challenges we're going to add in and layer in, and how we can use a different carousel of coaching behaviors to ultimately maximize the level of player engagement. And beyond that, if you are at the top of the club, and typically we'd be in tryout season in New Jersey and New England, and you have people that are claiming that their club believes in this practice methodology, or believes in doing this to holistically cater for the well-being of their players, that they want to make sure that physically they're the most prepared that they can be to maximize performance in key areas, key times of the year, then you've now got a tool that you can objectively demonstrate that that's being done through. So if we believe in games being the center of our learning, we've got to have data that is going to clearly demonstrate how much of the session the players were engaged versus being stopped. We're going to be able to look at heart rate graphs and AP graphs to say, okay, well, they've actually gone for 20 minutes there, which is a game. They've stopped for 2 or 3, and it's not been a heart attack on a screen of they're going and then a coach has stopped the session and they've brought it back down. So they can do it from that way. And then obviously, as we've kind of touched upon from a periodization perspective, this is where the player monitoring comes in. We can see exactly what a player has done throughout their 3 or 4 sessions in the week. If we're in a double weekend or a tournament weekend, we can make sure that the decisions that we're making are influenced by where that player is physically. Are they ready, capable of going back to back? Do they maybe need a break just to taper off and refresh themselves? So there's so many different avenues that it can go through, but ultimately we're just trying to provide a tool through which coaches can make the most informed decisions possible about both the players at their disposal and the education that they're offering them.
So let's talk about this. I know over in the Premier Leagues and with the teams, especially United and Barcelona, they're 5 to 10 years ahead of where we are here in the States on player performance analytics and data. That's a fact, right? And you guys know that that's why this is here. Are you guys right on time? You're early with this. Are you kind of, is it more of an education process with the U.S. coaches that just don't get that part of it yet?
I think we imagine a GPS system, a Catapult, a StatSports, wonderful systems that will run you anywhere from $20,000 to $150,000 per year. Imagine the most simplified and easy to use, non-intrusive product that has been scaled down to cater to an entire youth soccer market in the US and in Canada. Imagine that type of system that doesn't give you 20 metrics where you need a $50,000 a year sports scientist to make sense of this, but we give you 1, or we give you 7, but we suggest you look at how active participation affects your performance as a coach in your delivery, and how does it affect the engagement level of the players. Simply start there. You don't need to be a science whiz. You don't need to be a data analyst. You just need to be able to self-reflect on what you create, what you deliver, and then make small tweaks and adjustments as you get to know our system more and more.
Yeah, and Will, I just, Rob, if I could, I'd just add to what Mark has said there by saying, there is a curve, and an early adoption phase, I think, is what we're kind of in as how wearable technology in general has started to integrate the soccer and the youth soccer landscape over here. I think you look at a couple of the programs that have been put in place. Players First program with US Club Soccer is now a best practice. Is trying to identify best practice in youth clubs, and monitoring player health and wellness is part of that. Obviously, with Double Pass that have come in, and with all the academy programs, they're looking at what infrastructure, what sports science departments have in place. So I think there's a shift now towards a greater professionalization of the game, certainly at the youth levels and USL, MLS levels, where we're just starting on that journey. So I think it's one that we're excited to ride through.
There's just so much that I'm just intrigued by, because I think you guys got something. I mean, I know, like, if you had the same consistency as they do over in Europe and across the world, where you're coming in through the academy at U10s, U8-12s, and you're going all the way till you're 18, 19. Obviously, that's not the culture here in the States. But this type of technology to be able to track that progression through a player's performance, as I'm sure they do over in Europe, that's kind of how the foundation of this is. So I think you guys are right on time. I think what's happening now in the space, people are becoming smarter, about not just in soccer, but also in other sports, in hockey and in American football too, and tracking them heart monitors and where the players are going, heat exhaustion, all those things. So, I think you guys are on it. So
I think, Rob, coaches just want to be informed, right? I think for a lot of it, and obviously many of the youth clubs that we work with, they have exit routes to college. We obviously then work in the collegiate system as well with a number of our partners. But people just want information that can support them being able to make the best decisions possible for the wellness, the health and wellness of their players, the performance capabilities of their team. So from a recruitment perspective, for example, we've had conversations where we've layered in, there's a player's footprint that's built over a year, 2 years, 3 years. Obviously, we can capture the data as you suggested. So now in collegiate conversations from a recruitment perspective, coaches can say, okay, I know that this kid can cover X amount of kilometers in a game that might reflect what we need them to do based on our game model at the next level. For colleges, obviously, once they're there, you've got that cross comparison within trainings of players to players, and one game to another, or week 2 versus week 10 of a college season. So it's just trying to simplify the process through which we can educate and inform coaches to, as we said, make the best decisions possible for the benefit of the players and team alike. Got it.
All right. Well, let's get a little time out. I want to talk about the honor side. Talk about the side as an entrepreneur. Did you catch that, or did you lose me?
We lost you just a little bit there, Rob. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So I won't tee this up anymore because it's getting long-winded. I want to talk about the honor side. First of all, Tom, the backdrop, you look like you're doing a press conference on the BBC at like 2:00 in the morning.
Hey, I'll take it. I'll take it.
You're looking fantastic. You got the hairs looking tight. Look great. Mark, by the way, you throw an old, Man U shirt behind you, and they're like, it's end of discussion about anything, right? It's like, oh, no, that's my shirt. No, that's my jersey.
It's like, tell me a story, Willow. That's what people want to hear. Tell us
a story.
Oh, my God. I want everybody to stay awake on this live broadcast. So interesting journey for me, Rob. I started out as an aspiring young soccer player to want to really play for my boyhood club. I didn't come from Manchester. I came from a small town and went through this long, arduous process of working hard and believing in myself, and ended up playing for the club I dreamed of playing for only 10 times, in the Premier League, Champions League, and other tournaments. But then I moved on to another Premier League club, was sold to another Premier League club, came here to play in the MLS for Dallas, went back home, played in the second tier of English football for a little while, and really had a privileged journey in the game. And that, I think, certainly a lot of the fundamentals and certainly some of the characteristics that were developed at a club like Manchester United have only served me well during this growth and development phase I'm going through now in terms of building and growing and developing a company.
Yeah. So what was that moment for you when you came up with this idea? I don't know how much involved you were in technology at that point. What was your process there? Going from a professional athlete, right, to now a entrepreneur.
It's a great question. I mean, I think there are a lot of similarities in professional athletes and how they think about processes and trying to be successful and building teams that can be successful and compete. So I came over to New York City as the director of coaching in 2013 and realized the best thing I could do at that point was shut up and listen to people who had been here longer than I had in how to navigate the minefield that is USU soccer at times. So I had a great learning curve into developing staff, lots of different cultures and backgrounds and individuals who had seen the game in lots of different ways. And that got me really focused on the education of coaches and the development of programs that could support that and in turn give a better experience to everybody within the club. I was then approached by a guy called Michael Supp and Marc-Andre Maillet, who had just been through the master's degree program in sports pedagogy. Wonderful program. Anybody listening who are interested in developing that pedagogy side of developing athletes and coaches, it's a great program. And the two guys basically called me and said, we want to build something that has a technology component, but is primarily focused on supporting coach development. Immediately when I heard that piece, I heard wearable technology and was like, not sure about that. I heard the coach education piece and knew where I could add value. I obviously think both of those guys have layers and attributes and skill sets that I don't have. So it seemed like a good mix to begin with. And to be honest, Tom on this call now is like the fourth co-founder. He was the first club and progressive, open-minded individual to want to onboard the product. And he's been an integral piece of Beyond Pulse since 2017. So we're lucky. We're surrounded by a lot of good people. And from inception to where we are now, we just keep adding and keep getting lucky with the individuals that we're bringing on board to help us grow and develop the product.
How has what we're going through now in the last 6 weeks, how has that changed your business? Do you now take a step back and look at how do we add verticals to this? Do we change our model? Do we change how we approach this whole thing?
Well, when I think about our base model is team. So we would go into a club, we would deliver presentations, hit all the layers from board member to coach to DOC to parent. We would deliver the product, and then if they onboard it per team. Obviously, we're in separation season. So there's lots of training in isolation, and we've had to pivot quickly. But I think our staff and the people who are building the right message have been able to pivot very quickly in terms of developing an individual model. So now, in essence, we can, or clubs, colleges can onboard our product. The smart belts go directly to the individuals at home, and we create their platform on the coach dashboard so players can immediately put the belt on, plug and play, and coaches will immediately start to see that activity on the coach dashboard. So it's a nice way to connect at the moment, despite distance.
And that was going to be one of my questions too, because now you can see a coach could actually track, and a strength and conditioning coach could actually track players at home, whether they're working out.
Yeah, and it's both, Rob, right? So you've got what, as I said earlier, what we've tried to do is be able to support both coaches and clubs in reinforcing their cultural beliefs, right? So we're going to do this, and this, and we're going to demonstrate a willingness to grow and develop and get better and reflect and improve. And now as Willow said, like now in the time that we're in, you've got clubs all across the country and coaches all across the country doing such fantastic work to lay out ways through which their players can stay engaged and involved at home, and whether it's just technical development on a ball, whether it's the physical component that you've referenced, whether it's elite players that have still got to maintain a physical baseline prior to go back into performance. But ultimately, our message has been, it's all just guesswork, right? If you don't have something to demonstrate what's being done, you're just guessing. And as much as we want to believe that we've got players and colleagues of great integrity, great moral fiber, that truly want to get better, want to stay prepared, we've all been athletes and players, and we know that there's tough days, and we know that there's times where maybe I can say I did that 25 minutes or that 5K, and you just trust in me. So at this point, it's finding a way where we can continue to support the great work that those coaches have done by providing a tool through which the players can use to compete with themselves, the me against me mentality that's super important in any development environment at any level of sport. The me against my teammates, right? And the concept, we've had some great guests on our podcasts, and one was iron sharpens iron, right? Like if Willow's really working, how can that inspire me to work? So as a team, we want to be responsible. Our values that we're going to be the hardest working. Well, that can't just be when it's easy, right? This is a perfect time to demonstrate that while it's difficult, we can still dig in. It's still, we're never going to get a time like this to go and improve areas of deficiency. So we can connect the players with their teammates and demonstrate a little bit of competition. All the clubs, my club has 84 teams. So what a great message it is. Hey, can we be the hardest working team in our club, right? Not, not getting hammered if you're not, but just a little carrot to dangle. How hard can you work to improve? Can we want to get better faster than anybody else? What a great message that is, but now we've got a way of demonstrating it. And then obviously, we're fortunate to have partners and clubs that we work with all across the country and beyond North America. Now, can you demonstrate that your club, your team, is not just the hardest work in your program, but it is across the country as well, or even with the Australian teams that we have, and the Canadian and the German players that are in the belt, the Turkish players that are in the belt. So having that capability just to try to replace a level of competition that all of us, coaches, players, are missing on a daily basis, right? We miss the buzz of competing. So while we can't replicate that in its entirety, we can provide a little conduit and a little way where we can give them a little taste of that back. So
I love it. Tom, last question, then Willow, I'm gonna bounce it over to you and say, see, I got nicknames down now. So
yeah, you go.
You got it.
I'm coming over to you last because I got a good one to end it. But Tom, so prior to, I want to go back a little while, but prior to, and give me like a, let's shorten down the answer on this one.
All right, no problem.
Before Derek snuck into the country to come over and be the British soccer coach with Challengers, right? What have you learned about yourself from them? That when you first came over and you just exploring yourself and the whole culture over here, and now where you are working again for now a real startup. Now, Challenger was around for a long time, and you're part of developing and building something. Because I could just I kid with you about that because your passion just comes oozing out of just your knowledge and everything. How much you love doing what you're doing. How much have you changed since you started?
Oof. Yeah. Look, I think what we try to do. And personally, as a coach, as a club director, and obviously now as a director of Beyond Pulse, we try to walk our talk. I try to walk my talk, right? So education has been something that's incredibly important to me since I was playing and stopped playing and went through university. So I think it's a constant process of self-reflection, of looking and trying to learn from people that I'm surrounded by, the experiences that we've got to have in the game, the places we've got to visit. Being humble enough just to absorb as much of that as possible. Because if I think back, as you said, Rob, 12 and a half years when I first came to the US, I've forgotten more in that 12 and a half years than I knew then, right? So, and that's largely been influenced by the people that I've been fortunate enough to spend time with, and the resources and knowledge that I've been able to acquire. So, I mean, it's impossible to say, but a lot, like a ton. And in my opinion, it's kind of obviously been for the better. Friendships like this and being surrounded by the people I am on a day-to-day basis, it's been a tremendous journey, and one that I'm incredibly grateful for.
Well, they're lucky to have you, and if you get your green card, I guess you have to stay now. So.
Yeah, that would be that's the plan.
Yeah. So Willow, here we go. So talk about you as an entrepreneur, from where you were when you did this idea, when you started, building momentum, grabbing a lot of people to take your concepts and your passion and your idea, make it a real business. What have you learned about yourself in the process, number one? And number two, what advice do you give? Everything that you know now, you wish maybe you knew when you started. What advice would you give Willow back then? Not the United days when you're pulling birds with that shirt on, but before that.
Yeah, that's a story for another time, Rob, and a few beers. So, first things first. as a co-founder, I never expected, or as a creator of a company, I never expected building a company, you'd be the first to get criticized and the last to get paid. Well, what do you know? That is what it is. And I think two things for me. I've been very fortunate to have the opportunity to build this company, from having the backing of our investors, one main investor to begin with, having the support of just wonderful people who have different attributes and skill sets that selfishly I can pick from and learn from and develop from. I think that's a critical piece. And it sounds unselfish. You know, we want to bring good people into our company so they can help us grow. But selfishly, I want to learn from those good people. I want to bolt things onto what I already know as well. And I think being authentic is difficult if you don't know who you are. So from an individual perspective, the level of self-reflection and self-awareness I gained from my journey landing in New York City in 2013 and starting a company in 2014, I feel I know more who I am now, what I want, my core values, my core principles, because I think about them every day. I write them down. I go back to them if I feel I'm struggling with something on a daily basis. I think it's always good to realize who you are and stay authentic to who you are. And that authenticity then has to be passed on to the brand, the company, in who you are. And that's why we have people like Tom, like Michael, like Marc-Andre, like Justin Marriott, people who buy into our why, understand what our why is, more importantly, and have be that visionary for where they want this company to go. Because ultimately, it's not me taking it, it's not the other founders, it's us as a team, as a group taking it forward. And we're looking to refine that process daily. The advice I would probably give to myself is be very process driven from the beginning. It's easy to get carried away with the grandeur of your idea and how you're going to transform and disrupt the market. Yes, you need that level of self-belief that you can do that. You need to know your challenges and work backwards to know that your product will work when you have to ultimately get over the hurdles you're going to face. But build the processes around each big bucket, whether it's marketing, whether it's accounting, whether it's product development, market research, sales and link to marketing. Every single process determines how refined and how successful you'll be in each one of those big buckets. And it's something we didn't do well at the beginning as a company. But because I think we had great people, wonderful people working for us, the one key element that didn't negate that, but got us through a tricky time, was building relationships with people that are dual value, that were meaningful, that were authentic, and that were credible. And that brought us time to then circle back and make sure we were putting the right infrastructure and processes in place for each one of those big bucket items for us as a company.
It's just great advice. Great advice. And I can tell you, boys, half hour just blew by. Hour just blew by. Yeah, I know it. So I just want to thank you guys. I wish I met you earlier, but I'm glad we met here, and it can only get better. And I just want to wish both you guys good health and continued success with this platform. And thanks for spending time with me.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
And I'll leave you with this. The Brighton Seagulls, I'm a big supporter. I'm glad they went up a year. They got shot right back down. The true colors showed up. But, go Seagulls. Go Seagulls. All right, boys, this is Rob Thompson. That's Tom. That's Willow over there. Game playing you today. We'll see you next time. Take care, boys.
Cheers.
Thanks, Rob.